What's up, everyone? We are currently at the MIT Media Lab with Beckett Dunning. Beckett Dunning is a part of Learn to Teach, Teach to Learn, which is a great way for young kids to learn new technologies and then teach them to other younger kids over time. So when did this? I mean, I'm holding a microbit right now, and this is one of the many things that you do teach young kids to learn and then pass down that knowledge on how to use it to. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, so how did this sort of idea birth? It was like 20 years ago. And then how did you get involved? Why is this important to you? And then we'll kind of go into like what these things are.
So I originally started with the Learn to Teach program when I was in high school, actually my senior year in high school, and I came in as a new youth teacher. So basically the way the program works is you have new youth teachers, returning youth teachers, and college mentors. And the idea is basically that as people go through, they gain information around how to do the basics of technology, like digital fabrication and manufacturing, and also it's called Learn to Teach, Teach to Learn, in that the actual learning and the teaching is what sort of promotes the passage of learning. So as part of the program, people learn all these technologies and how to use them, but at the same time, they're thinking about lessons, they're thinking about individual projects, and then they're taking that information and they're taking it out to different community centers and organizations around the city to share that knowledge with younger students in the hopes that they can perpetuate that process.
So cool. So this happens at the high school level, at like the entry point. So as a freshman, you get to play with these tools, and by the time you're like a junior, you're teaching freshmen.
So it's actually happening it happens as young as 14, some students, 14 to 15, and they start at that point. I started a little bit later as compared to most people who would come into the program, but they start then and would be a youth teacher up until their senior year of high school. After their senior year, when they continued on to higher education, they would then, they'd come back as a college mentor, and many people tend to come back and then basically they would become the people who are helping to facilitate and helping to share and to help develop the next generation of learning.
And what are you guys at now with 20 years of this under your belt? Are you in a couple hundred high schools, or do you know how many you're in now?
I personally can't speak for the whole program,
yeah.
In that I've only, so I started there in 2010. Cool. And I know that there are many people who have gone through the program and have continued on into pursuing engineering, computer science, and higher education. And I know that they service many community centers throughout the city. And basically, as part of that summer program, they will go out to maybe 4 or 5 different community centers at any given time and basically run comparable lessons with very young students, all the way up to sometimes high school students.
Nice. And this is your communities here in Boston, yeah?
Yes. So the Southern Technology Center is where a lot of the Learn to Teach program happens, and as part of that program, they come to MIT Media Lab to do some of their learning, both to see the space, to become inspired, and to also further their learning. And in other times, the Southern Technology Center was the original Fab Lab. So it's basically 2 buildings. There's the learning component of it, and there's also the Fabrication Lab. People can come in and at a very young age be exposed to things like 3D printing, laser cutting, vinyl cutting, PCB manufacturing. So things that normally you wouldn't get to see until a college level.
Yeah, and then that unlocks their potential for so much more once their mind's been expanded into those new areas.
Yes.
So you've been doing this 8 years now, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and so this technology here is the microbit. So this is similar to an Arduino, and so it's programmable to do, you gave me a pretty good example there, is these Wi-Fi light bulbs.
Yes.
And so normally we pay whatever $50 for one of these, but actually all you need is a light bulb and a chip to be able to.
Realistically, a lot of things you can do, a lot of things that we normally pay for, you can make with all different kinds of electronic components, be them discrete electronics or with more of these microcontroller-based systems. And it's sort of, in exposing people to things like the microbit, it sort of broadens their horizons as to what you could do with programming and with hardware. So as opposed to going out and say, I'm going to spend $100 on a system, I'm going to spend $50 on a system, you could say, not only can I build it for much cheaper, but I can continue to do that. If someone had a great idea, as an example, you could turn that into your own product someday. So it sort of gives you the ability to take what you could learn in terms of programming and give it a physical application.
And then after you get to learn these skills, you get to apply them to other areas like you were describing, further, not just to potentially decrease your own cost of goods, but also you're learning about how the black box works. Then you're taking the skills that you learn from that and applying it to the further things that you create, especially for young kids in high school. That's really important. This reminds me a lot of FIRST Robotics, actually, where they engineer and design robots to complete out on playing fields. This is also, except that, what's really cool about this is that they're also teaching other kids.
Yes.
Because when you also teach, then you're firing and wiring a second or a third or even a fifth or 12th time over and over these connections in your mind in order to be able to retain them for longer periods of time and practice them, put them to skills.
It's all about thinking not just about how you think about things, but how someone else would think about, and how you'd explain to them in a way which would both teach them, but also sort of get it to solidify and to further their knowledge. So the more you learn, it's like if you learn something and you never can apply it and you can never tell someone it, and you can only do it yourself, what really is the point of that learning? It's sort of about the sharing of knowledge and the perpetuation of learning.
I love that. Yeah, that's so aligned with our values and why we have this channel as well, to perpetuate all this knowledge that's been coming from so many different industries. You bring up a really good point, which is that it takes a certain special person to learn how to teach different people, because different people have different learning styles.
That is one thing about the program, is to think that anyone has the capacity to learn or to do anything. Yeah. So not to necessarily just say, I'm a great person at teaching, I can convey all of these things, but not just to put yourself sort of in your own little treehouse, if you will. Like to say that anyone could learn those skills, and to show someone both by mentorship and example and through guided activities, hey, you can do this too, and one day to make everyone at that same level. So that's sort of the cyclical process. Yeah,
and then there's also this unlocking, in the kids' eyes as they get to do something themselves that works, and that they got to do. They built it, they did it, and then that goes, aha, I can do it. Yes. And I had this guidance from other people like you along the way that helped me, or even kids that are only a year or two my senior, instead of a whole-fledged adult. So then it's even more like, I can teach in 1 year or 2 years when I've learned it. And this is so great.
The near-peer experience is like a very important part too. That
near-peer.
Yes, so
the near peer.
Potentially learn from someone, like say, myself, I'm 26 right now.
I'm 25, so we're same age.
So yeah. And basically, if I was to be teaching someone who was, say, 12, I wouldn't be as close in ability to relate as someone who was, say, hey, in middle school, hey, in high school, and they would be able to, say, in a way, interface better with that age group. So it's sort of saying, well, not only is this knowledge that you can gain, but I'm someone who's of your equal age range, who's sort of in the same structure and situation as you, who got this. So when you see someone that's really near peer to you, you can easily convey information, and people just retain that a lot more easily.
And get inspired by it more because they can see themselves easily in their shoes in a year or two doing the same thing. Versus if it was 25, you would be like, oh man, 12 years my senior. Yes. Wow. The near peer, that's really the first time that's sank in to be as impactful as it is now in me, is that you really need that to be a close person of age to you as well, so that you can get further inspired by it. Okay, what about other thoughts about Learn to Teach, Teach to Learn that you want to share?
Well, I would say the people who run Learn to Teach, Teach to Learn program are very passionate about what they do. Originally, Dr. Mel King took the Southland Technology Center as his emeritus office and had opened it up as a center which could give back to the youth and could make more people inspired. I think it would definitely be good to meet them, Dr. King and Dr. Susan Klimczak at some point, who are always at the Southern Technology Center, always keeping things running. Also, Edward Baffy, who has been taking an active role in helping to get things running, help coordinate, and help to basically get everything together in our most recent iterations of the program. So I just think there's a lot of people, there's a lot of work that goes into doing it, but at the end of the day, it's all about just really making an impact on these young people and helping them to not only learn themselves, but helping them to basically create the scaffolding and pathways for them to do the same for others.
So well said. Yeah, that's and I always think about their actualization once they've gained these skills and added them to their tool belt because they were exposed to them through programs like yours. That's when they're actually able to fully become realized in the world, and they're able to delve into different areas because they have different tools, and all this kind of good stuff. Maybe we can sit down with one of them.
I think
That you listed.
Be a good thing to do.
Maybe we can do that. We leave Monday afternoon, so maybe we can do it before then. Let's see. But if not, next time we're here or SF, we'll coordinate. We'll see what we can do. All right. That was so much fun. Beckett, thank you so much.
This was very nice talking to you.
That was super fun. Appreciate it a lot.
Okay.